Hey everybody, welcome to Houston with a Problem. We're rocking and rolling. It's a Houston late night show. The new quarter for me starts next week, so I've got to actually get my rear in gear and get ready to teach people stuff. I got a couple super chats even before I jumped in here. Arun Nagarajan, I hope I'm saying that right. Houston, you're still holding on to Sears holding shares. Isn't this the last week we can sell? Happy birthday. Yeah, I think Monday or Tuesday is the day that the sell button gets turned off. Can't remember which one's which. I think Monday is also the date for the omnibus bankruptcy hearing for Sears, which is the most recent one in the steps that they got to take for figuring out their bankruptcy. So we might get some news, some press releases out of that come Tuesday. But yeah, I think they turn off the buy button early next week, and then whatever shares we have, we are stuck with. So I'm gonna ride this out to the bitter end and see what happens, because why not? And then Robin Hood asks, any idea what causes Havana syndrome or how we can make it? I talked about this last week, I think when I was in Hawaii. My best guess is that it's sound lasers, which are basically they take ultrasonic waves that are stacked up and basically like a wavefront, like a lasered wavefront, and it makes the sound feel like it's coming from inside your head. So if you can make the ultrasonic waves at weird frequencies, you can probably give people all sorts of crazy headaches. So what they use when on cruise ships and stuff, when Somali pirates are coming racing towards them, they'll point these things at Somali pirates and it feels like their heads are exploding. I wouldn't doubt if it's something related to that. Beyond that, I don't know what they would be using to make that stuff happen. I mean, it's either those sound lasers, or it's just a bunch of people who work for the embassy just getting hung over way too much. But I don't know. Outside of that, I don't know. Space Monkey, can you explain in moderate detail how the Great Lakes were formed after Pangea? And happy birthday. The Great Lakes were formed, I think, by glaciers. If I remember correctly, I think they were just big dips that glaciers formed in. That area of the country gets a lot of snow in normal years, and in during glaciations, it just piles and piles of snow and just carves out those big old chunks. They're just gigantic glacial lakes, I believe. If I remember my historical geology correctly, that's what they are. Hopefully, maybe. Pretty sure that they're glacial lakes. But the cool things like Lake Superior agates are formed when in the wintertime, when the big ice sheets form and they start scraping across the bottom of the lake. They shave off all the silica. They can collect some pockets, and that's what makes the Lake Superior agates. But yeah, so there. Okay, what was I going to talk about off the top? Kind of just what was in my brief little description. Chinese markets had their opening last night for us after their holiday, and they crashed really hard and then built back up to somehow get a gain. That doesn't make any sense because everyone knows China is going to be hurting a lot. One benefit China has at the moment is that its currency is pretty much tied to the US dollar, and it's given essentially a false valuation. So it's not technically a fiat currency because it's not trading openly. China just says it's worth this much, and that's how much it's worth. So what they can probably do is they can probably just pay off their onshore investors to keep the Chinese people happy. But I have little faith that people who invested from outside of China are going to see a dime. So I think Evergrande is just the tip of the iceberg, that there's probably several other Chinese real estate companies that were working like Ponzi schemes, exactly like how Evergrande was working. And we'll probably see more of them collapse. There are big differences in Evergrande versus other huge bankruptcies. Like when Lehman Brothers went down, Lehman Brothers was $600 billion in change in debt that they defaulted on. but they had over $600 billion in assets. So essentially it was a wash. Them just evaporating from existence was like a blink, whereas Evergrande is in the hole. And they're only reporting the 300 billion they're in the hole to essentially offshore bondholders, but that doesn't include the deposits people have made on a host of properties. So there isn't much in the way of mortgages in China. You either like put a huge deposit down or buy things with cash. And a lot of these folks who are buying into homes or condos, they would put 50% up in cash, and Evergrande was using that to build projects further down the line, and they just got caught up in this huge Ponzi scheme. And so a lot of the folks, they spent their life, their not just their personal fortune, but their family's fortune trying to get one of these homes, and they're never going to be built, and that money is just gone. So I'm not sure what China's going to do to help those folks, but my guess is that the debts involved are much greater than the 300 billion that have been talked about, that they go a lot deeper than that. And that there's just probably millions upon millions of families in China that are hosed by this. And they're probably not the only one. When you've got loopholes in the regulation like this that allows things like this to happen, it's usually not just one company doing it. It's probably dozens of them all doing it. Just like we see how all these hedge funds naked short like crazy, my guess is that there are other real estate firms that were doing Ponzi schemes like this, and we'll see more of them start to pop up as the effects of this go deeper. Okay. All right. Oh man, you guys are real chatty tonight. Goodness gracious, there's so many already in here. Let's see here. AM7, Houston bought over $1 million worth of $1 GME calls for 1015. Any idea why someone would do this? Yeah, that's probably hedge funds. And what they did is 9-10 months ago, they bought a whole bunch of these calls to qualify for Reg Show, because they could say, oh, look, I have access to all these shares over here. And yeah, they had no intention of exercising those things, or no intention that the stock was ever going to go down to that level where they could exercise them. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of shares that are going to expire in the money on that sucker, and it's going to be quite a gamma, I think, for the next week if that happens, because that's 100 million shares that need to move. Macro Turf, I like that name. Can you see a world where Biden declares a reset in the market, foregoing any sort of payout in the market? Are capital gains all that worth it to the Fed? I doubt they would do a reset in the market, because what they would face from that is millions and millions and millions of people who've invested a lot of money not getting their payout. And if they don't get their payout, they just pissed off a whole bunch of informed people that vote. I doubt they would do some sort of reset like that. My guess is that they would do the tried and true, which is let the shit hit the fan and then bail out banks, because it works. And it might piss a bunch of people off, but it pisses them off less than those who are heavily invested in this stuff. I mean, anything's on the table, but I doubt they would do some sort of market reset, especially without having something in place like blockchain to make sure this never happens again. I don't see a reset happening on that. Dog Toggler, would you agree that locking up a significant percentage of the real share float in ComputerShare, removing from the DTC, would be a game changer? I mean, it could be, but the problem is with that are twofold. One, it is really, really, really hard to sell your shares if you're in ComputerShare. You have to set this limit order, and then the order goes out like once a week for them to sell all these shares at different levels. And so if MOASS hits, you're screwed. You are not making your bank. You just aren't. And number two, it makes the stocks illiquid. And with the small float of GameStop as it is, this can keep GameStop from being able to go into the S&P 500, because the S&P 500 requires a certain amount of liquidity in those shares, and if we tie them all up in ComputerShare, all of a sudden those shares are considered illiquid. I mean, more power to you if you're going to go in ComputerShare, but I'm not going to bother at all. It's just a pain in the butt. I have no intention of holding these shares forever. I have every intention to sell them for $1 kajillion and retire. If you folks want to hold on to them for long periods of time and perhaps miss the MOASS, then jump into ComputerShare. But I think it's not for me in any way, shape, or form to transfer in there. Seth Hancock, Houston, will the U.S. defaulting on debt affect squeeze? Yes. Talked about this a few times. A lot of the assets under management for these hedge funds is actually U.S. Treasury bonds. And if we default on those Treasury bonds, the value of those bonds collapse quite a bit because they go from AAA to junk bond status. And you don't want to be holding junk bonds as the foundation of all your assets. The way hedge funds get liquidity is through the repo market, where they will take their treasury bonds and give them to a bank as collateral for short-term loans for a pile of cash. Then the hedge funds will make a play, make whatever profit they're going to make, and then they give the cash back to the bank for their collateral, for their treasury bonds again. And if those treasury bonds aren't worth spit, then all of a sudden their assets under management shrink. That makes the ratio of the margin go through the roof, and they face margin calls without the ability of raising liquidity. Because we'll be facing a huge credit crunch. Because it won't be just the hedge funds facing that. It'll be pension funds, Social Security, banks, sovereign wealth funds, financial institutions. All those guys all of a sudden would find that their assets under management are worth a fraction of what they were before. So it could definitely have a big effect on triggering the squeeze. All right. How are you late night owls? It's only 7:45 over here, but some of you folks, it's getting past your bedtime, isn't it? Kyle Griffith says Bloomberg was trying to downplay the Evergrande destination situation yesterday, saying this is nothing like Lehman Brothers, and was saying we have nothing to worry about. I think BlackRock and their $43 billion in bonds that they bought from Evergrande might have something different to say about that. That's 10% of their entire portfolio is Evergrande bonds, and they're never going to see a dime out of that. I mean, that will make BlackRock want the squeeze more than ever, right? They'll make up for that kind of loss. It's interesting to me. So someone posted a really cool tweet that showed like the second day after October 29th, so it'd be Halloween of 1929 when the stock market crashed. The whole thing fell off a cliff. There was a little bit of bounce and some recovery. And everyone's like, oh, it's over. It's fine. Everything's fine. Go back to your homes. Nothing to see here. The bankers have this. It's okay. And we're seeing a lot of that. We saw a big fat canary in the coal mine just eat shit. And everyone's like, nothing to see here. We took care of all the poisonous gases. And Evergrande going belly up. And that's a lot of money. I mean, Evergrande represents more debt than like entire G20 nations. So, them going belly up is a big deal. We saw what happened when the nation of Greece owed $300 billion, right? They got all this austerity measures. They're electing communists. They're electing fascists. They're looking for anyone that can solve this problem because the unemployment rate is at 25%. This is an entire nation that owed that kind of money. Now we've got a private company that owes that kind of money and does not have the assets to back it up. It's a big deal. And it's just the first of many that are facing that kind of thing. And the companies with the largest debt in the world, I think in 2019 it was Volkswagen with like $190 billion in debt. Well, this Chinese company had $100 billion more than that on the books, and we know that they probably have even more. So, there's probably several other international companies that are facing the same thing. They don't quite have the same scrutiny in their books as U.S., Japanese, or European companies do. So we might be seeing more of this coming. And Manifest Density says, "I'll sleep when I'm rich." All right, that'd be nice. I'll have a really, really nice bed then. Sleep like a baby. Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, sorry, my chat course resets as always as I'm trying to scroll through it here, looking for a big question. Michael Katz says he likes my shirt. Same pattern as some of those old dinnerware sets. Super chat. Nick Callis, welcome, my man. Would a $500 call on GME for like June pay out if MOASS happens much sooner? Only if you exercise or if you sell. Yeah, so that's what you're looking for. I mean, it has to hit $500 to get to that range, or have a day where the volatility goes through the roof, and so the value of that $500 call also skyrockets, and you make a good sale on that. Otherwise, if you hold too long and MOASS happens before then and you never exercise, then you're holding the bag. So that's why those lotto tickets, those deep out of the money calls, those guys are total lotto tickets that if MOASS happens before them, you can make a hell of a gain on it. But if you hold it through MOASS and never exercise, then you're screwed. Pastor Blunt around, welcome. Argo Blockchain IPO, a good investment? They open up tomorrow at $15. I read a bit about them and seem legit. Any knowledge about them? 9. I don't know. I got to notice that they're going IPO, and I really didn't look into it because my brain can only handle so many stocks at one time. I'll have to look up Argo and see what they're all about. But if they're offering at $15, then they're probably hoping to see some gains from that. So Argo, let me look them up. Argo Blockchain IPO, and we'll see. I'll give some looks at that tonight. I'll have a chance to do some reading. But no, so I don't have any answers for it at the moment. But thanks for asking. It put some more wear on my on my periphery. Okay. Hoshi Gaming says, check the Hong Kong, Evergrande, and SSE index, but they are up. Why? Can you help me wrap my head around it? Well, I think China announced that they're going to do some sort of thing where they're going to split the company into 3 pieces. They're going to basically take over the company, split it into 3 pieces, and do some sort of restructuring, save the day thing. So my guess is that folks bought in on that news, hoping that something good comes of it. But none of that news helps anyone in how they're going to pay off all that debt, or they're just going to be like, "Bah, tough shit, we're China, do something about it," and then they just keep going, which hurts the ability to get international investment in the future. But China's such a big economy that I'm sure they'll find money from somewhere. Eric Salinas, hey Houston, what happens to the banks if they don't get that $1 trillion by October 1st? That's something that I was talking about the other day. Somebody asked me the other day, and I think it was with Jackson Hunter. We were both like, what does happen if they can't meet that $1 trillion? Do they just go bad bank? Do they give them a $35 overdraft fee? Like what happens if they don't meet those capital requirements? And if what punishment do they get? Do they, like, if you can't meet the capital requirements, do they take more money from you as a fine, and they have to like raise even more money to meet the capital requirements? I don't understand. I don't understand what the punishment is. We have lots of banks that seem to be shutting down credit to be able to meet these obligations. So they're not lending money out via personal lines of credit, credit cards, auto loans, small business loans. They're starting to shorten the amount of ways you can actually borrow from them, which is probably a way to raise that money. But I'm not sure what the punishment will be. If anyone can dive deep into that, I would love to see. Off exchange, YouTube like button. Houston, looking like my grandma's sofa without the plastic protective liner on it. Your grandma's got taste, man. Meow, kitty cat. My cat loves my roommate's room and just screams to go in there all the time. Hey, buddy. So, there, he'd open the door for you. Go get him. Yeah, but yeah, your grandma's got taste. She's got impeccable taste. Kevin Kellogg, hey BlackRock, here's 25 cents. Go call someone who cares. Jonathan K, Houston. So if no MOASS by October, no squeeze this year? I don't know. I mean, a lot of weird stuff can happen. Come December too, because we've had Decembers where, what was it, 2 years ago they didn't pass the budget and the government shut down for like 30 or something days right through Christmas. The economy hit some rough patches when that happened as well. So don't forget that Ted Cruz can filibuster anything and shut down the economy anytime he wants, because he's that kind of wonderful piece of stink. So you know, weird things can happen still. I still think that the economy is not looking great at the moment. We've got supply shortages, supply chain problems. We've got COVID raging still. We've got corporate debt problems. We've got MOASS looming. We've got Chinese real estate market going under. We've got the American real estate market quivering on the 8 million foreclosures and evictions. We've got inflation problems, labor shortages. There's a whole bunch of things out there that are causing lots of issues, and we're still just teetering on, you know, I don't know, I feel like they're spinning plates or something. They're trying to keep them all spinning at the moment. Okay. Here I am asked, what's the meaning of life? The meaning of life is to eat, shit, procreate, and life is doing things in between all that stuff. Okay. Scrolling. Oh, there's from DVS. Overstock.com just won their lawsuit with prejudice versus short hedge funds on their appeal. Does that set a legal precedent for GME? Yes, it does, because if they won on prejudice, it means they absolutely cannot appeal. So that sets a very strong legal precedent. One of the rulings I read from the judge was something to the effect of, hedge funds can't be upset at this because just like hedge funds want to see the company go under, the company also wants to survive. So the company doing whatever it can to survive is capitalism. So the hedge funds can just cry a bunch of sad tears, and that's that. So yeah, Overstock winning this sucker sets a huge precedent for GME and others who want to offer crypto dividends or the like. Big deal. Eric Salinas super chats. I sincerely hope they won't take away the sell button during MOASS or try other nefarious things. I don't think they'll take away the sell button, namely because they have to balance the books. So if they take away the sell button, they have no way of getting your shares. If they have no way of getting your shares, they have no way of closing all these things out and balancing the books and getting it over with. So I don't think they'll take away the sell button. They may take away the buy button. If they see FOMO is kicking the price up too high, they might do that again. But again, the reason why they took away the buy button before was they were doing these payment for order flow transactions on margin while the price was skyrocketing, and retail investors were still getting in and buying this stuff. And so retail investors were buying at $300, and the payment for order flow system was looking for a cheaper share out there that was pennies cheaper they could make a profit on, and the price was only going up. So they're losing money on every single solitary transaction, and that was increasing their margin, eating up their cash on hand, and they got margin called. And that's why they turned off the buy button and basically made it impossible to trade, those 100 stocks that were seeing huge gains on the 28th. And if Robinhood and others, these other trading platforms, were smart, they would have a system set in place so that when the MOASS happens, when they see huge price action like this, they turn off payment for order flow and just direct route that stuff into the exchanges to buy and sell. And that probably will be the best move they can make. And hopefully, they did that, because otherwise these things can bankrupt them and then get tied up in billions of dollars in lawsuits. They'll be going on for years, and you want to avoid that stuff if you are a big company. Especially, you don't want to piss off all of your clients. Your clients are where you get your money from, and if you piss them all off, they never come back. All right. Julianne asks, is it worth buying Metamaterial now, or is it too late to get anything out of it? No, I still think Metamaterial can pop. They still haven't done squat about closing all those naked shorts that happened when Torchlight was in existence. And they still haven't figured out what they're doing for their dividend. If that dividend is going to be cash, or if it's going to be stock in a whole new company. That can really make for some interesting stuff. So I'm holding to see where it goes. Plus, I really hope my options pay off. I really want those options to pay off. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Silhouette did not know that Jeff Bezos was a hedge fund manager in New York before Amazon. Lol. Wowzer. Yeah. He worked in the financial industry before moving out to Seattle and starting Amazon. That's his background. He's a finance bro. There's a lot of them out there. Bones, hi Houston. Remember, tell everyone to click the like button. Hey everyone, click the like button. never subscribe. Click the like button. What else am I supposed to say? Like and subscribe. That's all I say, right? Like and subscribe. Do that. I always forget these things. Eric Everett, Be Big still a play? I assume. Aren't they on the thresholds list still? I thought Be Big and Spurt/Gree are still on the thresholds list. I'm really curious. I had Spurt $17 options, and when the merger happened, the options became this weird thing. All of a sudden, they're just worth a penny, and they're not. I have no idea what's going on with them. Normally, what those options switch over to Gree at some other level at 1/6 the number of shares or whatever it is. I have no idea what's happening with those, and got like a month for them to figure that out. Because right now it's just I'm sitting on these options and they aren't doing anything. And according to the brokerage, they're in the money a great deal, but they're worth nothing. I have no idea what's going on. Resident Flea, your thoughts on budget reconciliation process will be for the debt ceiling, government funding, or the infrastructure package? Yes. The biggest problems for all of those is Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Those two are real thorns in the side of the Democrats trying to get anything done. And I don't understand. I don't know what they want, honestly. They never said what they want. They just don't agree to do things without ever offering some sort of alternative. So I don't know what their end goal is and what they're trying to get for their states or whatever, because they really haven't said anything. They just go, I'm not going to do that, and that's not helpful to anyone. So it's going to be really hard to do that budget reconciliation process for the debt ceiling or infrastructure package, etc., if you can't get those two to do anything. So it's going to make a Ted Cruz filibuster much easier, because they won't be able to get the 50 votes needed to get him to shut up. So yeah, the House passed all this stuff. Now we're waiting on the Senate to actually do something, and the Senate is the most useless body in the entire world. So you can guarantee that they're going to screw that up somehow, because they think things like being polite to each other is more important than ever achieving anything. And if I were Biden, I would go to Kristen Sinema and to Joe Manchin and say, hey guys, you got to get on board. You got to pass this stuff to keep the economy from falling off the cliff and to move us into the 21st century. And if you aren't going to do that, I am going to find someone in your home states to primary you, and we're going to dump $1 billion on them and make your life a living hell. So, what do you want? And we'll try to get that in there for you. But you're going to vote for this, or else you're toast. You're dead to us. And you probably have to play some hardball with them. Matt Newton, any risk not getting paid on shares in Fidelity because we were sold synthetic shares? And did you do your ivermectin research? Yes, I did the ivermectin research. Still not sold on it. But I don't think you have to worry about anything with Fidelity. Fidelity, they're their own clearinghouse. The synthetic shares have to be bought, so you're going to get money for them. That's plain and simple. They have to either put a real share in your account or pay you to delete that synthetic share from existence. So you're going to get that money. Yeah. But you guys don't want me to go down ivermectin rabbit hole again. Totally not the FBI. Super chats. Hey Houston, have you had a chance to check out Mendelbrot set used in the algos we've been delving into breaking down Astros Discord? No, some people told me to contact Astro today, and I did, but he didn't write back, so I'll have to go back and find those videos or something. Mendelbrot Astro. So I'll have to dive deep into that one. My day was basically spent putting together syllabuses and having meetings about, because we're doing this like team teaching thing with these 3 classes. We have to make sure that everyone's schedules all line up, and yeah, I wish I could just teach my thing. But no, I gotta make sure that what's being taught in the building a camera class matches my math class, which matches the model building class and all that stuff. So, it's gotta be holistic. Just make it holistic makes it way harder to organize. Okay. Ray Corrales, Houston, 80 to 100 million real shares of AMC have been shorted. What do you think will happen to the 400 million real shares? Well, okay, so the way these things get shorted are kind of 2 different ways. You have like legit shorts where they borrow real shares and they pay interest on that, and then they sell those shares in the market hoping the price drops. And if it drops, ideally they go in, scoop it up, and repay those loans with those now much cheaper shares. Number 2 is what they usually do, which is they naked short. They just print, sell those shares like crazy. And they do that part in a couple of different ways. One is the market makers just print shares and sell them. The hedge funds just pretend like they have the shares and sell them anyway. Or the market makers print shares and sell them and put them into these equity swaps that the hedge funds then sort of lease from the market makers, and that way no one has to report the short sales, so they can produce as many shares as they want, and they never get reported to Ortex or FINRA or anyone else. And then they're able to short the market, flood the market with shares, and drop the price. So the fact there's 80 to 100 million real shares of AMC that have been shorted, that probably represents hedge funds that have directly sold counterfeit shares onto the market, then having to go out and find shares they can borrow to meet those T35 requirements on those shares. So Um, yeah, there's probably 4 billion or more synthetic shares of AMC that have been sold that we all happen to own. Um, that's that's the entire mechanics behind the squeeze. So what will happen to those 400 million real shares is that they could be anywhere. Really, like in your portfolio, you probably have some real shares. You probably have a whole bunch of synthetic shares. Be my guess. All right, good questions tonight, though. Real good questions. You're supposed to say something about liking the YouTube algorithm. I love the YouTube algorithm. Okay. Justin Kappa. Justin Kappa TV. Does anyone know the name of the other company Houston mentioned a few times in previous podcasts that has a lot of patents? No Labs. KNOW space Labs. Their ticker is KNWN, I believe. Noon. They're on the OTC. They just announced they have a second non-invasive blood glucose measure. So you can get the one that's the bracelet that you kind of wear like a Fitbit. And there's another one you can just like keep in your pocket, hold out, check your glucose really quick, and put back in your pocket. So you don't have to like wear one of those bracelets all the time. They're in trial right now with the FDA, and they're waiting to find out if they get their FDA approval, which I think is going to come because it's a pretty awesome technology. And in labs, they've proven it works again and again and again. So they're gonna be up there dominating the glucose monitoring. It's a $100 billion a year market, and they're gonna get in there and they're gonna get it. Okay. Illinois gaming. ComputerShare has gotten me paranoid. Can you explain? Well, the idea behind ComputerShare is if you direct register the share, you are guaranteeing you don't have synthetics in your account. The problem is if you move into ComputerShare, like the people who ideally use ComputerShare are folks that might be insiders in a company, and they need to guarantee that the amount of shares they have are recorded and can't be affected by a brokerage going under because it's registered under their name and not under the brokerage's name. So if you buy shares from Fidelity, Fidelity has this giant pool of shares and that are listed as like Fidelity holds them, but then Fidelity assigns permissions to those shares for you. And if you are an insider like Ryan Cohen, he's got 9 million shares of GameStop. Well, if he wants to be an insider and he wants to be a member of the board, he's probably going to take those shares and register them in ComputerShare. So they're under his name, and then he gets, he can say, hey, I have these shares. They're not under anyone else. I want to be a part of this board, and then you're in there. It's a lot harder to sell shares because the way they sell them is you put in a limit order, and then once or twice a week, ComputerShare just takes a whole bunch of those limit orders and then finally puts them on the market to buy or sell. And it's a much slower system for being used like a broker, and that's the big reason why I'm not going in there. More power to people if they want to use ComputerShare, but I am not planning to be an insider at GameStop or AMC. I'm just gonna hold the shares I have. I turned off lending. I've got a cash account. I'm not trading on margin, so my shares aren't being lent out, and that's good enough for me. New bills, super chats. We don't know how leveraged hedge funds are. We don't know how good or poorly the hedge funds are doing managing their assets. Can they kick the can? Ish. The people who have a better idea are the people who are lending to them. So they are getting an idea of what their money is being used for, and those are the prime brokers and the bankers, and they're the ones who are keeping an eye on things because they don't want that leverage to get beyond the 30 times that it already is, And they know that a lot of that margin that's being used is being used to short these stocks that are not going down. That's why so many of these hedge funds are experiencing huge losses at the moment, because they made bets that these stocks would go to zero, and the stocks aren't. They are flying high, and every day that GameStop sits around $200, these hedge funds are out billions and billions and billions of dollars. Every day that AMC goes up $2 is another billion in market cap for them. So there's a lot to be said that there definitely are folks looking in there, but at the same time, these banks, they're hemming and hawing. They're going, oh man, like, we need to liquidate these dudes and close these positions, but they don't have enough money to do that, and we don't have enough money to do that. So they are really like rocking a hard place right now. So, Credit Suisse is still sitting on billions left over from the margin call and liquidation of Archegos. They still have, billions of dollars in short positions they can't afford to close. They can't go out and buy the stocks. They don't have the cash on hand to do it. So they're just sitting. So the bank itself is now sitting on the short position, and they haven't been able to do anything with it. So there's a lot going on, and so the bank's like, oh, if we just maybe put it off longer, maybe there'll be some miracle and the stuff will work out. And what they're seeing is the longer they put it off, the worse it gets. And now they're like in that sunk investment fallacy, sunk cost fallacy, where they put it off for so long now that they're screwed. If they had just let everything ride back in January, yeah, a couple of hedge funds would have been vaporized. People would have made $1,000 a share. It would be over. But because the way the payment for order flow stuff works, they turn off that buy button, the squeeze got paused and kicked down the road, and now it's so many more millions or billions of shares have been naked shorted, and the problem is way worse than ever, because now because we didn't get our big wins in January, are angry and greedy and saying we're going to hold forever, and that only makes the end result even worse. Tom Richter, what's the word on the La Palma volcano? That's still slapping lava all over the place. Someone sent me a really cool video the other day of the lava coming down and hitting swimming pools, causing the water in the swimming pools to boil off. That was a pretty cool video. But it's going to destroy, destroy a few hundred homes, probably make its way to the ocean, and make for some pretty awesome lava plumes as they're exploding away in the water. And if they're lucky, the lava tube will form, and that lava will be just flown out in the ocean, and you'll get really cool scuba diving footage of pillow basalt forming. That stuff's awesome. Okay. Micah Kaz, do you think hedge funds started prepping for situations like this to happen when free trading platforms first came out? No. It never occurred to hedge funds that retail would basically form this army of weirdos who buy and hold dying stocks to squeeze them. I don't think it ever occurred to them that there'd be such a retail army that would do this, and they're still trying to figure out how to combat us because they have not found a solution yet. These stocks are still flying high, way higher than these short hedge funds ever thought they would, and they still have a lot of liability in them. Okay. Beijing, we have a problem. All right. Nope says, dude, $1,000 a spurt turned $150 of gree. Well, even my stupid call options should reflect that, but they aren't reflecting anything. They're saying there's nothing. There's nothing in there, and I don't. Stupid call options, do something. All right. Dan Summit, hey Houston, what would be good investments for 401ks? Any idea when Metamaterial is going to rip? Need more GME shares. I thought Metamaterial was going to rip at the end of last month, beginning of this month, and nothing. I mean, it went a little bit, went to like $6, but and I've been paying attention. I sold my calls. I could have bought a whole bunch of more calls after that, because now it's bouncing around a little bit under 5. As for good investments for 401ks, man, 401k is a long-term investment, so you go for long-term stocks generally. But if the market is going to take a hiccup, then, you know, if you don't have to worry about commission, you just pull everything out for a little bit and then wait for everything to dip, put everything back in. And then, you know, it'll go right back up and you'll double your money probably. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Yeah. Oh, did I miss super chat here? Sean Marcos, which one is worse, this coming collapse or 2008? I think this one has a lot more bad things that can happen. 2008 was a housing crisis problem, and 2.5 million foreclosures in the United States triggered that. We're looking at that many foreclosures right now, plus a few million in China, plus we've got inflation problems, we've got supply chain issues, we've got corporate debt issues, we've got commercial real estate issues, we got a whole bunch of things stacking up on top of it that can all collapse under that alone. So I think this time around is going to be a little bit more of a serious dip than before. Sean McCall, thank you for the super chat. What time we got? 8:16. Okay, we're doing good on time. Protege's son getting philosophical here, or yeah. Do you think Jesus was even a real person, considering there's no historical evidence of him, and the Bible was written until long after he was gone? Thoughts on the councils of Nicaea? Oh boy, man! All right, got the councils of Nicaea, the councils of Trent. Those are essentially the groups that voted on what books were in the Bible. You had a whole bunch of different Christian sects that were believing different things all over the area, and they wanted to consolidate and make one agreed upon Bible. So they voted some things out, they voted some things in. That's even changed over time. The Protestant Bible lost a few books in 84? Quite a few of them. So there's all these books called the Apocrypha, Infancy Gospels, things like that. The oldest manuscripts of books in the Bible date to a couple hundred years after the supposed death of Jesus, around 200 AD or so. The earliest book is still at least 70 years after the time of Jesus, because it makes reference to the destruction of the temple. So there are no books in the Bible that are written by people that were around with Jesus. You got Saul of Tarsus, Paul, who, when in his letters to the Ephesians and the Philistines and all those guys, he writes, it didn't even occur to him that Jesus was a person on earth. He wrote about Jesus as coming to him in this vision, and some people say that vision was a seizure or something. Who knows? But it didn't occur to him that any of Jesus' stories actually happened on the earthly realm. It's a strange thing. If you guys want to go on that stuff, I recommend going to one of those Jesus seminars. They can be really heady and weird, but you can learn a lot. Or you can get do I have the Apocrypha in here? I think I do. I got some of them. As I bonk everything around here, there's the lost books of the Bible. These are books that used to be in the Bible that were voted out. The lost books of the Bible, and you can also find the Infancy Gospels online. There are a lot of resources that have them listed. And the Infancy Gospels are weird. I'm gonna flip them all in my head between James and Thomas and Mary, but one of them, they talk about, a couple of them, they have pretty similar stories about Mary, and Mary was, when she was born, an angel came down and told her dad, her mom couldn't get pregnant, was like, you're going to be pregnant with this very special child, and just like Jesus. And so her dad runs back to the house, and his wife's like, look, I'm pregnant, it's amazing. And then they give birth to this child, and they describe the child of Mary as popping out of the womb, already speaking, and knowing more than all the priests, just like Jesus. And that she was so beautiful, people couldn't even look at her, even though she was a small child. And then, because she was such a smarty pants and knew so much, sorry, Monkey Butt wants to get under a blanket. Get under there, buddy. The rabbis were like, we need to marry this girl off. We can't deal with her anymore. And so they did this like drawing where they took all the men that weren't married in town, and they like really drew a name out of the hat, and it came up as Joseph. And Joseph was described as being like old as dirt. And Joseph's like, dude, I've got children that are older than this young lady. I'm not marrying a 12-year-old. And the council priest was like, no, you're going to marry her. And you know what? We're going to throw in these other 5 girls, and you get to marry all of them. And Joseph's like, damn it. I want nothing to do with these things. These children are too young. I don't want anything to do with them. And so he like leaves, Mary and the 5 other young ladies at home. And he goes off to go, he's a construction worker. He goes off to go work on some houses in another town. And he comes back to find Mary pregnant. And he's like, oh, Jesus. And Mary's like, I didn't say that then. He's probably like, oh, Mithra or whatever. I don't know what they'd say back then. And he's like, okay, they're going to think that I boned you and you're 12 and I'm not boning 12-year-olds. So he takes Mary and the other young ladies. They go to the priest, and Joseph's like, hey, man, I was out of town. I had nothing to do with this. And Mary and the other ladies are like, no. It was some like archangel from heaven came down and just like had his way with her. And now she's pregnant with like magic God baby. And the priests are like, okay. And that's how they get away with it. The minute Jesus is born, Mary is no longer magical like she was before. She was no longer knew everything in the Torah, the Talmud, and all those things. And she was no longer special. And all of a sudden, everything was on Jesus. And then it goes into like the story of early Jesus that are left out. And he does all sorts of weird things, like kids make fun of him, so he murders them or blinds a village. And he kind of was like a little jerk in the Infancy Gospels. That's one of the reasons why they left the Infancy Gospels out, is that they wanted, Jesus to seem perfect and nice and kind and godly. And so they didn't want the Jesus who was a jerk who blinded children for bumping into him in there. But my favorite story from the Infancy Gospels is Jesus is, he's more of an adult at this point. And there's Jesus, which is another term for Josh, right? Josh, Jesus are technically the same name. And then there's Joseph, his dad, plus Joseph, his brother, right? Plus they go to the home of a man named Joseph who's dying. And Joseph dies and Jesus revives him because he's the son of God. And then Joseph, and Jesus sit around and have a meal together. Trying to try to keep that one straight. All right. But as for, do I think he ever existed? I'm leaning towards the not, because a lot of those stories, even in the regular Bible versus the Apocrypha, were stolen from lots of deities in the area. Romulus and Remus, from Mithra, from Dionysus, from heck, there's so many of them. That a lot of stuff was taken from ancient Sumerian gods. If he existed, he didn't exist like it was in the New Testament. That a lot of that stuff was kind of just forged from other religions, and especially the Mithric faiths, like Christmas and Easter were also the days that Mithra supposedly was born and died and resurrected. So there's lots of competition there in the area, and a lot of old Mithric religious sites became churches. So the cave. So one story of Jesus' life is that he was born in a manger. Another one is he was born in a cave. And the cave he was supposedly born in was actually a Mithric temple and a religious site. And that's the building which they built the Church of Nativity on top of in Bethlehem. And so there's ancient Mithric temple under this church that was kind of co-opted. And the same thing happened in Rome and other places where these old Mithric temples were. And you guys probably are like, ugh, why'd you ask that question and why are you answering this for so long? But there's a lot of weird historical things in there. My first class in my grad school is actually kind of about this stuff. So yeah, but if you want to read like weird stories, get some of the books with the apocrypha in it. They've got some just outlandish stuff that happened in there, and some of them are just kind of boring, like about some apostle who's on his walk out to what is now like Azerbaijan or whatever, and building temples along the way. All right, now that I totally halted everyone's brains for a moment, let's get back in here. All right. Sean McCall super chats. I have 4 GME and about 280 AMC. Should I even it out? Well, I mean, if you can afford 280 GME, by all means, go for it. That's a lot of moolah. If you want to, 4 GME might be more than enough to make you quite a chunk of change. 280 AMC might be more than enough to make you quite a chunk of change. But I do think that GME has a bigger potential overall in the end, simply because they've got that much smaller of a float, and their board of directors seem to be much more diabolical in combating the hedge funds than AMC. So that's, I put GME up here, AMC down here, and all the other plays, head on down from there. Okay. Jordan Kimmery. Houston, I want to know if a science man like yourself thinks Rona came from a lab leak. Interested to see what your circles think. Non-politicized answer. It's possible. I don't think it was an engineered virus anyway. There are any telltales of engineering in it. The fact that it's a virus that likely came from a bat means it was probably if it came from a lab, it was from an animal that was being studied in that lab. There were stories of animals that get tested on and then they die and they're supposed to be incinerated, and the guy who's responsible for incinerating them will just sell the animals on the market. So that's one great way for a lab leak to happen. But I don't think we'll ever know one way or the other if it was a lab leak or not. And at this point, does it matter? It's in the wild. It's out there. It's affecting tons of people. The best thing we can do is combat it while we can. And I don't think we'll ever get a definitive answer if it came from a lab or not, because I think the people who could give you the answer are either dead or being silenced. The Chinese government really clamped down around that stuff, and they're really good at it because they're a very top-down structure. So, they kept quiet as to the seriousness of the infection when it first happened, and like their body counts are like, no one else has been affected in China ever since we clamped down in Wuhan. China's perfect, and there's no way that's the case. Like this is a very virulent stream, and it's definitely affecting people in China, but they're just not reporting on it because they're a one-party system, and they can clamp down on those things in ways that other nations don't have that ability. But there's a case to be made that it came naturally, but there's also a case to be made that it didn't because of where it popped up. The bats are all in southern China, and if it come naturally from bats in southern China, then it would have affected people in southern China first, not people that lived in the city with the giant, virus lab where they study these things. Okay. All right, let's see here what we got. What else we got? Looking for questions. Yeah, throw question marks at the end of your thing so I can see the questions. Because I'm scrolling and you guys have lots of little chats happening, and then I'm trying to find. So yeah, get real. It's a good point. Yeah, put a question mark in there, and I'll have a better idea of seeing those things. William Morgan says, Be Big, Gree, and ATER Adder are on the Reg Show threshold list tonight. Yep, I think there's a lot of them on there, and so I think we might see some more pops out of them, or they might do what they did to AMC, where they just do those debt swaps and then reassign ownerships to them. So it's a they've got their shenanigans. They are definitely fighting for their lives, and they will do whatever they can to make sure that happens. Oh, got super chat. All right, Matt Newton. I think the House bill ensures debt ceiling increase. No, because it's got to go through the Senate, and the Senate are just a waste of space. So we've got a 50-50 Senate with Harris being the deciding vote as president of the Senate, and we have 48 Democratic senators who are lockstep, are definitely going to go for these things, and 2 wild cards, Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Christian Sinema. And they like going against the grain without ever actually explaining what it is they want out of that. So they just don't seem to really articulate what they want while they go against the grain. And it's very frustrating if you were probably one of those Democrats. And then you've got the Republicans who won't do any help whatsoever. So if you get 2 Republicans on board to voting for raising the debt ceiling, then you're probably okay. But if Ted Cruz is going to filibuster that stuff, they might not even have the ability to do their budget reconciliation moves with just 50 votes to move on and get that thing passed. So we might get into a weird showdown here. The last time Ted Cruz filibustered like this was when we got the government shut down in 2013. And that's when my buddy Will was being awarded the Medal of Honor. And so one of the last things that the Senate did was they basically were like, here's some money to get Will to Washington, D.C. so he can be awarded the Medal of Honor. That was one of the last things they voted on, and they shut the government down. And so Will was awarded like while the government was completely shut down and no one was getting paid, and it was a really weird situation. And what happened was that the Army was given this money to like fly Will and his loved ones out there for the ceremony, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to give him this money. We're going to hold on to it. And then some defense contracts like Boeing or something ended up footing the bill because they're like, just get this guy to DC. And so. Yeah, the Army was being really weird to him. I don't know if you read any of those stories that I posted about him, but they want him to like die in a ditch basically. And now he's a lieutenant colonel. He's back in, and he's a badass. But yeah, okay. Pedro Arias, Houston, you ever feel like you have too many shares of GME? MOASS seems delayed and was debating of selling 10% to do some options because I'm all in. Lol. I want more. I've got the money I'm using to play with options and to try to gain more. But when I make profit of those things, I just buy more GME with it when I can. So that's what I do with that. NWB. Do you think it's better to cleanse healing crystals in daylight or moonlight? Cleanse them in your toilet water. That's the best way to cleanse your healing crystals, because you want to get them super clean with the most earthy water you can. Bud for FM boss. When it comes to ComputerShare, why would Ryan Cohen hint ComputerShare to his community? I have no idea. Smells like up dog. Houston, can you tell people to @ you and highlight it in your screen? It's easier to see. It's true, because it does pop up like bright red for me, so I do see that if they want me to see those questions. I can see that a lot more easily. Pops from my eyes. Pedro Arias also asks, hey, Houston, have you ever heard of CMKM diamonds and their naked shorting case that they had? Is it similar to GME? Investors waited 15 years on the scam, asking for a GME holder. Thanks. It's different. CMKM also issued a whole bunch of their own shares illegally and diluted their own stock without filing the proper paperwork with the Federal Trade Commission or the SEC. It is a different situation. Whereas the shares that have been sold of GMEs are naked and being sold by hedge funds and market makers. So it's a completely different thing. CMKM was kind of a scam company from the get-go, and the investors in there just got hosed by the corporate structure. A lot of those guys from CMKM went to prison because of the things they did. Different situation. There's some similarities in that a whole bunch of shares existed that shouldn't exist, but it's kind of what happened. I don't know if I talked about this in the show, but there was a gym here on Bainbridge called the Health Maintenance Center, HMC, and they had a weightlifting like machine company called Zenetix, and they filed to sell some OTC stock. I think they're allowed to sell 5,000 shares, and then they sold like millions of shares illegally. And the dude who had founded the company, he was in my sister's class in high school, and actually in the yearbook was voted most likely to go to prison. And he had sold like $250 million in shares and didn't take that money to invest in the company and make more of these health gyms around. But he bought like a Formula One team and a bunch of Rolls Royces and big house. And in a year, spent $250 million, gone, poof, in like Brewster's Millions, just spent it and there's nothing to show for it. And he had such little funds that when the FBI finally showed up to arrest him, he didn't have enough money to get out of the country. He was just sitting on his porch waiting for the FBI to arrest him. And he's in prison now. And it was one of the largest stock scams in U.S. history at the time. This was 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. He might be out of prison now. I haven't looked it up recently. But it was a big deal. And then CMKM kind of did what he did, in that they sold a whole bunch of shares they weren't allowed to sell, that weren't registered and with anybody. And so basically they naked sold like their own stock. Weird thing. And drove their own stock price down. And then the hedge funds jumped on board and did their thing. So it was quite the scandal. Okay. Okay, so that one there. Go through this question. There's one from FM Boss. Oh no, I answered that one already. All right. Get real, Houston Wade. What was the game you were playing on Twitch? I tried to watch but got lost and went to watch Red Dead. I was playing Geoguessr on there. Let me bring it up here. I'll bring it up real quick and I'll show you guys. Geoguessr. All right. Click on that. Click on Google Chrome. Nope. Okay, one sec. I got to reassign my Google Chrome here. Where are you? Why aren't you? There we go. Okay. Turn off Google Earth. It uses Google Earth. So essentially, you can click on one of these maps and it takes you and it gives you a Google Earth location somewhere on Earth. You have no idea where. So we are now next to a pipeline somewhere. Somewhere there's a giant pipeline. I'm on a hillside. It looks like Miracafaya, but that could be anywhere. That's a Portuguese plant. But they did get all over the world. So I'm on this one lane road. I'm somewhere in the world and I've got to figure out where I am. So I'm on a hillside, and you know, if I want to go up the hill, I might be able to see where I am. If I want to go down the hill, it's likely I'll hit civilization, but I really have no idea where I am, and I'm going to want to look out over the entire world. So you start climbing the hill, man, with the Google Street View, and the goal is to get on the map and click where you think it is and seeing how close you are to the actual spot. And I've gotten within a few yards on this map. I haven't gotten a perfect score yet, but I've come pretty darn close. All right, I'm gonna be able to get to the summit here and see where I am. And we just jump and jump and jump and jump. And we are really in the middle of nowhere. Where are we? This is a very large, very expansive, very blank area. I don't think I'm in North America. This doesn't look like a North America type pavement job. And these bushes don't look like things I would see, not as much sage as I would see probably in the US. So maybe in, oh, there's a geo marker. What's that thing? Ah, too far away. Back one more. Someone made some sort of road marker here. So you might find weird little clues. This doesn't tell me anything. That's probably some marker by the contractors. But there's always going to be a town or a sign or a house. This is might be one of the most remote I've experienced so far on here. Man, where are we? And the windy road's really hard because you can't jump as far ahead as you can with a nice straight road. Oh, what was that? That looked like a field of some kind. Is there going to be a sign here telling me anything? No, but the pavement ends, and now we're screwed. So let's go downhill. Come on, downhill. Can we go downhill? No, it's as far as I can go on this road. So I have no idea where I am, and I'm not going to waste my time on here because we're not doing the Twitch channel today. So I'm just going to guess that we are somewhere in, I don't know, let's say Turkey. I'm going to guess I'm somewhere out in the middle of nowhere, Turkey, and I'm just going to click there and guess where we are. Oh, but I was in Croatia. Oh, all right. So it probably was Mirkafaya. Yeah, so you guess where you are and you get points, and then you can do the next round and it'll take you somewhere else. Hopefully somewhere urban. There we go. Someplace kind of tropical, urban. We got, this looks like maybe in Australia or New Zealand, or where are we? Come on, show me your cars. I want to see your cars. Why aren't you, where'd that truck go? I think we're driving on the wrong side of the road here. Yep, this might be Australia. I've got snorkel. So try to guess where you are, and throw it down the map, and that's Geoguessr. That's the game I was playing. It's a fun game. Someone suggested it last week, and I am all about geography, so it's fun. Uh-oh. L-Dub just sent me coordinates, which you know what that means. Gotta figure out where we are. Where are we going, L-Dub? We are going to there. Da-da-da. Somewhere in the U.S. We're going to, somewhere in Missouri. To that field in Missouri. That is not exciting at all. There's a funky design school right there. Some circle school. That's crazy. And there is an irrigation system. All right, that was nothing. All right, better luck next time on where you're going to send Houston somewhere in the world. All right, back to Big Houston. Oh, God damn it. Forgot to turn it off again. So good. When your show starts, Houston, click that thing off so that when we go back to Big Houston, it doesn't make the stupid intro. All right. Morisco says, ATER, A-T-E-R, FTD threshold list, high short interest, high cost to borrow, high utilization, nice price action. Let me put that, I'm going to write that one down because I wasn't looking at that one. I was looking at BBIG and all those other ones, but ATER threshold. Okay. All right. FN Boss asked me if I read any of this, the ComputerShare DD. I read a lot of it. If people want to do ComputerShare, by all means, go for it. It's a pain in the ass, and I care about being able to keep my stocks liquid so I can sell stuff when I want. So I'm not going to bother transferring into ComputerShare. It's just a headache, and I don't need it. I got a cash account. They can't lend out my shares. I'm cool. Chris T says, Krill Canadian Bank has major exposure to Evergrande bonds. Thoughts on puts? might be a good idea. I think they were at like 11 or 13 billion that they had in bonds on Evergrande. So yeah, they're not good for anybody. I don't understand why any of the banks saw green today. They saw quite a bit of green, and they're not in a good place. So I don't know why they went green. The Wild's Life. Okay, last try, HW. Will a CS push hurt our GME chances of joining the S&P 500 due to the liquidity and percent float requirements? I'm trying to decide which way to go on this, but the agenda feels nefarious. I think it does hurt our ability of GME to go to the S&P 500 because it makes those stocks essentially illiquid because it's too hard to sell them and move them out of ComputerShare. That's another con on the ComputerShare side. I have no problem. Just turn off your margin, have a cash account, turn off lending of your shares, and go from there. I don't think ComputerShare is going to be the catalyst. I think either a collapse in the bond market or the NFT would probably be the way to go. And maybe if they move to an NFT, you direct register them then. And all those stocks move over to the NFTs. They'll be traded on supposedly they'll be traded on Loopring. But meh. Pedro Arias, does TD Ameritrade have their own clearinghouse? I don't know if they have their own clearinghouse. I assume they do. TD is Toronto Dominion. They're a big giant investment bank, and a lot of investment banks do their own clearing. Like JP Morgan just left the DTCC to form their own clearinghouse for all their stuff because they didn't want to be responsible for the shenanigans everyone else has. So oftentimes they create their own clearinghouses. Calypso, can you explain the plus 25% rule for the special divvy? The rule moves the ex-div date to 1 day after the payment date. If the rule is applied, would hedge funds be on the hook? I don't know about that rule. I'm going to have to look up that rule, man. So it is plus 25% rule for special divvies. All right. I have to look that up. I know dividends, you got to give them like a 30-day notice. And depending on what state the company is registered, if they've got outstanding bonds, they can't issue a dividend. So if they got any debt of any kind, if they haven't had some other rules for some states, if they haven't had so many quarters of profit per share, they can't issue a dividend. So we'll see. I'll have to look into that guy. Josh Bentley, any updates on Sears? Nope. They have their next court hearing on Monday, on the 27th, I believe. So we might hear some news outside of that. Julian, the game is kind of a huge time sink. You play it for 30 minutes and a whole afternoon disappears. Yeah. That's what I'm finding. And I if I were just to guess, just look at a spot and go, I think it's going to be here, it'd be different. But I really, really want to find exactly where I am. And so I'll follow those roads for 50 miles until there's finally a settlement somewhere and I get a name of a town. And then I can start searching. Sometimes I'm pretty good at okay, that's North America. It's got to be somewhere on the East Coast. Boom. Or this is definitely France. Boom. This looks like Poland. Boom. And I can get those pretty closely. But man, I do enjoy that game though. It's really simple and just gamified Google Earth for me, which makes Google Earth even more amazing. Harambe lives forever. Houston, just wondering about Dow Bear stock. Now that the Feds kicked the can down the road in the U.S., will this Evergrande rodeo drive the Dow down? I think it has the potential to, because we are in a global economy now, and a lot of these U.S. companies invested in these foreign companies a lot of billions of dollars. And it's not just U.S. companies, it's Canadian companies and German companies and Japanese companies. All like, hey, China is an emerging economy. They grow 10% a year. It's a no-brainer to throw billions of dollars in bonds in this. And now they're seeing that they no-brained it. And it was a mistake to throw tens of billions of dollars of bonds in those things because they're not going to see a dime back. We might see, who was it that did the big dive into, was it Boss Blunts and another guy? His name's not coming to me. Where they went searching in these foreign markets and finding mortgage-backed securities from Washington Mutual and from Bear Stearns that were from like 2006 that were still like being held by these weird offshore holding companies. And my guess is you'll probably see 10, 15 years from now a whole bunch of derelict bonds from Evergrande being held by weird offshore companies, and their due dates of maturation coming up, and what do you do with that? Always On asks, Houston, do you think government positions should all have term limits? Oh, happy birthday. I think more important than term limits is probably age limits. I don't think we should have folks that would normally have been retired for 30 years deciding what happens in a modern economy. We got like Dianne Feinstein, her brain is gone. It's rotted out of her skull. She has no idea who she is, where she is, or what she's doing, and she's being propped up by a bunch of aides, keeping her held up, just like they did with Strom Thurmond, a generation earlier. Strom Thurmond was 100 years old and just basically drooled and spoke bibbledy, and he was still being elected year after year. And I think that you hit 72 years old, and that's it. You are now retired. You can't run for Congress anymore. If you don't know how the internet works, you can't be a senator. you have to at least know how the internet works to be a senator, because we had guys like Ted Stevens and Robert Byrd and Dianne Feinstein, and a lot of these folks are just they don't have it. They don't have it anymore. They should just give up their power, retire, and move on. And so that is one way of doing a term limit. We don't let people fly planes after 62. Why do we let them fly the country? And not to poo-poo all the boomers, but seriously, you are at an age where you're being very degenerative, and you need to let some new blood in there to freshen things up and to address modern problems with modern solutions. Dean Scott says that big dividends got to be paid out by October 15th, and the dividend's going to be $3.75 a share. What? I haven't read that, but that's going to go on the research list. Big divs. All right. Oh, I've got Micah Kaz has put in the coordinates for something. Let's see here. We are negative, so we're in Western Hemisphere. Let's bring up bing. All right, let's go somewhere. Ta-da! Where are we going? Oh, couldn't understand this location. Why can't you understand this location? That's a perfectly fine location. That's negative. Why can't you understand that? Nope, still can't understand the location. Why not? That's a perfectly good coordinate system. Maybe if I do it as that and put a W on the end. Do you understand that? And if I put a south on that one. Nope. I'm sorry. It's not letting me go there. And I'm not going to spend time trying to rewrite that. But Mr. Cuddy put one in there. So let's go with Mr. Cuddy and see what, come on. Oh, come on. Just highlight this thing. There we go. Highlighted, copy. Go in there. We're going to paste it. And we're going to search it. There we go. That one worked. Okay. We are... Where'd we go? We're in a big old mine. No, we're in a geyser. Are we in Yellowstone? Yeah, we're in Yellowstone. There we go. All right. I thought that was a mine pit. No, that's a big old geyser. Which geyser is that? That's Excelsior. Is this Old Faithful? Grand Prismatic Spring. Ah, all right. That's a big hot pool of water. The soil around this stuff is really delicate, and you can fall into some really hot stuff, so they don't let you walk on it. Although there's lots of Instagram influencers that keep scalding themselves and their pets by trying to climb out on these things. It's also, these ponds are where they discovered that there's bacteria that can survive essentially what we consider unsurvivable temperatures, and they thrive off of the heat in these ponds, the hundreds of degrees. So a lot of space biologists, astrobiologists, study these things to see what kind of creatures could exist in extreme conditions on other planets. So always pretty things to look at, though. Okay, intro's off. I'm gonna switch myself. The intro didn't go on. Okay. I forgore. Houston, one of my professors just showed my class GeoGuessr. Could he be an ape? There you go. Yeah. All right. William Morgan says BBig's doing a spin-off dividend of a new company on 10/15/10/21. That's another thing to look at, spin-off. So that's kind of what might happen with the preferred shares dividend for Torchlight if they make a new oil company out of that. Okay. All right. So let me go up and see if there's any questions that I lost, because I'm down at the actual bottom of the chit chats there. See if there's any guys that I missed in the Wayback Machine. Bradley White asks, Houston, good to see you. Weird question. If you traveled back in time, wouldn't the Earth be in a different place? Like, wouldn't work that way? We think it would. Would it? No, it would. It would definitely be in a different place. That's why I described my idea for what I thought would be a brilliant, what the twist, sci-fi movie, where you have these guys. They are like, it's like the right stuff. They are training for this special mission. We're meeting like Captain Hero of the Air Force and some badass Navy SEAL and, you know, the brilliant scientists, and they're all wanting to be like the guy selected by NASA or the time cop police, I don't know, who get to be the first person to go back in time, travel back in time. And they're doing push-ups, they're doing schools, they're, you know, coming head to head in competition, and they're weeding people out. People are falling out, and the whole movie is about like who's the best of the best and what they're gonna do. And finally they select, you know, Captain Hero of the Air Force, and he gives his wife a kiss on the cheek, and they put him in the machine, and they spool it all up, and they hit that button, and he goes blink out of existence. And the next scene is him blink in the void of space going as he's choking and his blood is boiling, and he freezes, you know, this frozen thing in the coldness of space, because he went back like 100 years, but 100 years where the Earth was then, right? So the Earth's here in the future, and Earth's gone. He's appeared there because Earth hasn't gotten there yet. It's still floating around the universe, around the galaxy, and rotating around our sun. And so they went back in time to a spot where the Earth will be in 100 years. And so, you know, then the camera just kind of focuses on him drifting in space and frozen, and his eyes glassed over and whatever. And then, you know, after some period of time, 100 years have gone by, the Earth comes along, and the atmosphere of the Earth smacks into him, and he becomes a shooting star through the sky. And the movie ends with his wife going, "Oh, look at that beautiful shooting star," not realizing it's her own husband who's been frozen in space for 100 years. And that is the end. So I think one of the reasons why we haven't had met any time travelers yet is because they keep blinking off into the void of space and dying out there, and then burning up in our own atmosphere. So we're going to have to combine somehow time travel with the Star Trek transporter machine, so that you can time travel and transport to where the Earth is at the time period that you want, or will be at the time period of going into the future. It's yeah, so that's why we have many time travelers. They're just the void of space is just littered with frozen corpses of future people. All right. What might be smart, is you go into orbit around something, like around the planet, right? And you do the time travel from there, and that way it's got some sort of weird. No, because that would you'd just go off on a tangent. You would end up in space at a weird point, and then the Earth would just miss you entirely. Never mind. I was thinking you could be in orbit, and then you're going 17,000 miles an hour. So you have to like go way outside the Earth's orbit, calculate how long, millions and millions of miles or whatever, and then go into orbit, do your time travel from there, so that when you blink back in time, you're going 17,000 miles an hour, and you get to a point where you meet the Earth as it should be, and you can get into orbit. That right there is an excellent homework problem to give physics students. I'm going to write that one down, and I'm going to say that's going to mess with their brains. Okay, orbit time travel. And that should be an excellent question for those rocket scientists. Okay, grad school questions. You just made my brain wrinkle a little bit thinking about that one. Okay. All right, let's go back down here. We got anything new? Project Sun asks, Houston, do you have any opinions on the 3 torus model of the universe? Yeah, I don't have opinions on the torus models. They've been presented here and there over time, but I don't really see how, there's various non-Euclidean geometries that the universe can exist. So we can be in like a Cartesian coordinate system where everything is grid form, right? And 2 parallel lines shoot off and they remain parallel forever. We can be in a spherical universe, right, where our coordinate system is based on a sphere, and if you got 2 parallel lines, they eventually cross. Just like on a globe, you got your longitudinal coordinates. You try to fire that stuff off and make sure it maintains parallel. Eventually, they'll both cross over the poles, and you have yourself parallel lines can't remain parallel. You can have a saddle-based universe, which is the torus universe, is a version of that, which is you fire off 2 parallel lines and they diverge forever and never meet that way. So we don't know what shape our ultimate coordinate system is for the universe. So it's really hard to gauge that. We kind of use the Cartesian coordinate for now because it's the one most familiar to us. But I don't have any big opinions on the torus models of the universe because it's too hard for my brain to picture how everything's laid out as a result. So yeah, is the universe a donut? Is it several donuts? I don't know. Okay. Christopher Arnold says I bought 150 shares of Smile Direct Club Monday before the crash, so go SDC. Yeah, they're apparently their report is Eeyore tweeted something about it the other day, and it was like 70% shorted or something, short interest. So they're definitely being shorted too much, and I couldn't figure out why, because they've got a pretty good corner on the market. They do have some competitors that are doing similar things for a little bit cheaper, but Smile Direct Club actually has orthodontists, and these other companies are just computers, and no orthodontists involved. People's teeth keep falling out, and they keep suing and stuff. It's Invisalign that has the. Maybe I'm getting them mixed with Invisalign. Invisalign has the orthodontist, so they're the expensive ones. Smile Direct Club are the cheaper ones that may not have the orthodontist. Maybe that's why they're being shorted, because they might get obliterated with those lawsuits or people losing their teeth. Biden's ramblings. What makes people think the Earth is flat? I think they're just contrarians. Either contrarians or morons. I think some really, really smart, cunning linguists, they just like to argue about anything and be devil's advocates about anything. So they'll argue the position of flat Earth to kingdom come just to piss people off because they get off on that. And then other people buy into it and they go, "Yep, Earth's flat," and that's where we go. Sean Gardner mods, you need a Houston Clips channel. some folks were cutting clips and they were doing a great job, and I just have been turd and haven't uploaded any of that stuff. So I've done a terrible job at that part. I need a producer is what I need. I need someone whose job it is to like, if you guys can get me like 30,000 more followers, I can afford a producer. And we can have clips and stuff like that. Just make people subscribe or something. And I can probably get there. I can afford to get a producer at that point. TechWiz Anu, TWA. How much shares have to be bought back for GME? My guess is in the billions. I think on the low side, probably 1.5 to 1.7 billion. On the high side, several, maybe up to 4 billion or more. I think there's a lot of them that have to be bought back. And so that's why it's such a short squeeze play. Apollo God, Houston will not disappear because a student in the future will have solved this and created a time machine. Oh, Ian Rain, Houston, I had asked you a while ago about some physics stuff. And you said you had to ask your sister, curious if you ever got those answers. That was about, what was that about? That was about trying to smash neutrons together, right? Was that what it was? And I was saying that I don't think we have a way of accelerating them because they're inert. They don't have any positive or negative charge. And what was the exact question about? I remember I asked my sister, and I asked her like without giving my opinion, and she kind of said the same thing, that she thought like it would be too hard to accelerate those neutrons. And she said there might be a way of doing it. Like, I wish I remembered the whole question that I had asked her. There might be a way of colliding the particles, of having two different particles collide that form neutrons that then collide, which might be, some weird trick shot with Poole. Ian, can you restate the question? Because I can't remember exactly what it was that I had to ask her, but she kind of confirmed that were my suspicions. She's the nuclear physicist one. She's the one that deals with small particles way more than I do. She's a nuclear physicist for the Navy. And they gave her all that, here's how you work nuclear reactors training, as well as being a PhD in physics herself. But yeah, remind me what that question was, because I can't remember the context or why we're talking about accelerating neutrons and for what reason. It just left my brain. All right. Mr. Cuddy, how's it, Houston? What is your opinion on the proposal of a new telescope on the Mauna? Probably talking about the TMT, the 30-meter telescope. I'm okay with it. It's in an area on Mauna Kea that has no archaeological sites, no record of humans being there. There's nothing really sensitive to worry about. It's down from the summit where the religious and sacred sites are. Though there is a big fight among the native Hawaiians over this area, simply because the native Hawaiians have been screwed for centuries. I mean, when Europeans showed up, made first contact, they brought a whole bunch of diseases that wiped out 90% of the population. And then they uprooted the entire tribal system of the folks that were native to Hawaii. And it was, they had these things called aupua'as. And let's go back to Google Earth here for a sec. You gotta zoom out and go to Hawaii. Getting out of Hawaii. All right. All right. So we will do the Big Island here because that's one I'm most familiar with. So there are these things called aupua'as, and the aupua'as, the word kind of translates to like pig head. So like you got the numu, how do you say the pigfish name? Aupua'a, the really long fish name. It's called the pigfish. So they got the aupua'a in there, and the aupua'as were these land systems that basically went from summit to shore. These really long, skinny of each mountain. So they would go these really long, skinny things go through all the climate zones, and that way each sort of family or tribe or clan or whatever they would have access to the water. They would have access to temperate zones where potatoes could be grown and stuff like that. And so they had all these different zones throughout the islands. And when the white people came in, they took over the land, kicked people off, said, "Oh, this is mine," stab with a flag. Then they carved out huge chunks of land and basically decimated the land system that existed. And the Hawaiian people, they were kind of a free love society. They didn't really have property ownership. It was just kind of, stuff was around. You use what you use. You'd fish. You'd harvest. You do your things. And then all of a sudden they said, "Oh, you can't have sex outside of marriage." And they're like, "What's marriage? We have to get married. Sex with a person, you gotta get married." And all of a sudden they had like this possessiveness that was thrust upon them, and all their best spots became rich people houses and hotels, and they lost a lot of access to the things that made Hawaiian culture Hawaiian for hundreds of years. And so if all of your really beautiful spots, like these beautiful beaches out here, are turned into resorts, and they're no longer the villages and the towns that your ancient people lived on, and you're kind of impotent when it comes to fighting against this powerful money that creates these big golf resorts and huge hotels and monopolize these beautiful beaches. And what's set aside as the Hawaiian homelands, like lands for Hawaiian people, in Hilo we've got some big areas of Hawaiian homelands. So a lot of this region is Hawaiian homelands. Like, these are homes just for Hawaiians, and a lot of the land that passes up through here are. And then they end up, the commissions that run the Hawaiian homelands end up, instead of giving lands to people to build homes, they build Walmarts, and they build Targets, and they build shopping malls, and they do lots of things that aren't necessarily helping the Hawaiian people have lands. They're just collecting money off of the leases for these big pieces of property in these shopping malls and stuff. So that's Prince Kuhio Plaza. That's one of the big malls. That's Walmart. That's Safeway. This is an older map because there's a giant Target and another big like Home Depot and stuff is built out here now. So what ends up happening is they try to fight, and so the telescopes are all up here on Mauna Kea, and there's a couple of very sacred sites. There's Lake Waiau, which is one of the highest alpine lakes in the Americas at 12,000 feet, and they don't really quite know how it formed, and they're scared to drill into it to figure out how it got there, but it's probably created by a glacial moraine, because when there were big glaciations in the past, it got cold enough on Hawaii that there are glaciers that formed, and it will snow here all the time too. And so they picked a spot for the 30-meter telescope out here on the north slope of this mountain, and it's far away from any of the sites where there was activities by the Hawaiians, and they thought, okay, let's be culture sensitive, we'll build it here. And the Hawaiians still got mad. They don't want any telescopes on the mountain, or at least a lot of them don't. And so they fight against this because they haven't won yet against the shopping malls. They haven't won against the hotels or the rich people houses. And so they want a victory of some kind. So they're fighting the nerds who want a telescope because they haven't won anything else yet. And so they see it as something they might be able to actually get a big resounding no on. The thing is about Hawaii is that Hawaii quite literally is, in the top of Mauna Kea specifically, is the single greatest spot on the surface of the earth to put a telescope. You're out in the middle of the ocean, and you have this very calm, not very steep thermocline of the water around it, so the temperature is very stable. You've got these trade winds that blow all day long, and the minute the sun goes down, the trade winds turn off, and all this warm air that's at the surface ends up rising. And as it does, the clouds dissipate, and you get something like 350 days a year of clear night skies where you can collect data from telescopes. And because all that air is rising, there's not much twinkling action of the stars, and so you get really clear images. What's called the seeing is really good, because when there's lots of air currents moving up above, you get different gradients and thicknesses of air as there's different temperature gradients, and the stars will actually refract through that, and they'll kind of change colors and twinkle in the sky and move around. And it's really hard to look at those that way. So being in the tropics, we've got good views in the north sky, good views of the south sky. You're 2,000 miles away from anyone. You've got almost no light pollution. You've got really stable air. You've got 350 plus days a year where you can take pictures of the sky. Makes Hawaii, and you're up above, 30-40% of the atmosphere when you're at 13,000 feet there. It is the single greatest spot in the world to do land-based astronomy. And so that's why some of the biggest telescopes in the world are all up here on the summit. You've got Keck, you've got Gemini, Subaru, this one Gemini, Canada, France, Hawaii telescope. You've got the submillimeter arrays. You've got UCURT, James Clerk Maxwell telescope. That's Caltech. That's just submillimeter. Which one's this one? That's also submillimeter. The UK infrared UCURT. That's the UH 88-inch telescope. There's also the where's the little? We don't have one. That's the UH Hilo one. That should be made to do a good one, but it's not. And so there's some of the best telescopes in the world, and some of the coolest stellar photography you'll ever see comes from those telescopes on Hawaii. There's also on Maui, on Haleakala, there's a bunch of telescopes as well. It's about 3,000 feet lower, so it's not quite as good a spot to get seeing, but there's the Air Force telescope, there's Pan-STARRS, there's several others up here. But Mauna Kea is the greatest spot on Earth to put a telescope. So that's why they will put the 30-meter telescope there. Kind of getting long-winded on this, but I personally think that a lot of consideration was taken into where they're going to put the telescope, and they made a lot of sacrifices on that. They wanted to put it somewhere where it wasn't going to be sensitive to archaeological sites or religious sites or sacred sites at all. But I also understand the perspective of the Hawaiian people, who should ultimately have control of the Hawaiian Islands. We stole them from them, and they should get to say what can go where. The first telescope ever put on Mauna Kea was done by the Merry Monarch, who was one of the Hawaiian kings, and he put a 16-inch telescope up there in like 1880 maybe. He also liked to hit golf balls up there because they go really far, so there's lots of golf balls left over from that era. So as a white haole, it's not my place to say where those telescopes can be and if they can be up there. But as a scientist, I know that there isn't a better spot anywhere on Earth to put those telescopes. So, and like my Hawaiian friends in astronomy are really caught between this all. There's lots of Hawaiians that see them as traders, and they want to be able to practice the science they love and learn about the universe. Lake Waiau here on Mauna Kea, this tiny little, it's only a couple acres in size, this little tiny lake at the end of this glacial moraine. This is a sacred spot. This was the belly button of the universe. And traditionally Hawaiians, when a child was born, they would take the umbilical cord, they would climb the top of Mauna Kea, and they would throw the umbilical cord in this lake. So there's, probably 1,000 years worth of baby umbilical cords gooing around in this frozen lake up here. And this is the belly button of the universe. So to me, it's kind of poetic that the greatest spot to look at the stars on our planet is also the Hawaiian belly button of the universe. It's where we are. And I can't say one way or the other if it's ever going to get built. I would love to see it built because the science it could do is absolutely phenomenal. With a 30-meter telescope, a telescope is 100 feet across, we'd be able to resolve the atmospheres of planets on faraway star systems, and we'd be able to do things we've never been able to do with other telescopes. So it got me quite a tangent there, but yeah. So, but it's up to the Hawaiians, I think. Okay. Oh, so there's a just in I missed that was about just in. Mitch McConnell says the GOP will vote for the U.S. to default on its debt. Oh my! So they're going to vote. They are going to vote lockstep against. Well, expect some red days in the market, man. That's yeah. All right, so I missed a super chat here. Chakuseki, if you could visit any moon in our solar system, which would it be? Also, thoughts on the Carboniferous Era. If I could visit any moon in our solar system, which would it be? Ooh. It depends on like what I could bring with me to do stuff. Like I would love to go to Europa and drill into the ice and see what happens. Um, but I think the most interesting moon to go to would be Io, because Io is one that has active volcanoes that are erupting like crazy, and uh, yeah, so I would love to see active volcanoes on a alien world and see what they're all about. That'd be cool. See all the sulfur flows and things coming out of Io. Yeah, I'll go there. Totally not the FBI. Pop a super chat in here. Hello again. In regards to the Mandelbrot theory, the one who came across it and broke it down to us was produced by Welch on Twitter. He'd love to speak to you about it if you want. Yeah, have him send me a DM, or I'll try DM after this. Produced by Welch. Add that to the long list that I'm forming here. Produced by Welch at symbol, so I know that is Twitter. Okay. All right. Yeah. Check that out. Oh, did I not finish? Thoughts on the Carboniferous Era? Oh, sorry, I forgot to finish answering that one. Carboniferous Era was when we had a lot higher carbon content in our atmosphere, and it might have been upwards of like 5 or 10% at the time, really high. And so plants just went and they grew a lot, and there basically was no ice on Earth. It was so warm that the Earth was very, very, very warm, very humid, very wet. And, because the Earth has changed so much over time, we can find. Oh, sorry, we got people being really loud in the next room. Let me just close that sucker. Whoop. We can find, like palm frond fossils in Alaska as a result. We can go to Antarctica and find, fossils for tropical plants, because these continents have moved around so much since then. We've got dinosaurs that are found, dinosaur bones found in Australia, that are found in Antarctica, that are found in the southern tip of Africa, that are found in Tierra del Fuego, showing that all these continents were at one time were amassed together. If we got to this level of carbon in our atmosphere today, we would be absolutely boned. Sea level will go up 300 or 400 feet. About a third of the human population will be displaced. We would absolutely just soil the oceans with nuclear waste, chemical waste, garbage, sewage, you name it, would all of a sudden be flooded everywhere. Most of our major cities would be gone. It would be really, really, really gnarly for us as a species. And we'd probably lose much of our arable land, especially in like the southeast of the United States, in places like Bangladesh and India. Yeah, it'd be gnarly. It would be absolutely gnarly. I don't know what other effects beyond that. We probably wouldn't survive as a species. We'd probably starve to death or blow each other up over resources, and that'd be it. But yeah, at one time there was a lot more carbon in the atmosphere, and these plants got huge as a result. Okay. What we got here? 9:23. I'm gonna go another 7 minutes or so, and then that'll be it for me this evening. Thanks everybody for joining. LW, Fukushima disaster has impacted oceans. Do the West Coast states monitor the radiation levels in the fish caught by the fishing industry? Google Earth was the New Madrid fault line. That's where you're headed, to go the New Madrid fault line. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at some field and I was like, it's some field. They were monitoring that stuff. The Fukushima plant, so up here in northern Japan, the Fukushima plant got inundated by seawater and lots of radiation spilled out in the ocean. But because it was one plant in a gigantic ocean, the solution to pollution is dilution. And that stuff, when it got further away, had less of an impact. You can find trace amounts of cesium and other things probably in fish at this point. But I don't think it's at levels that are too concerning. It's the stuff that's nearby that in like Fukushima itself, offshore here, that you really have to watch out for. Is if that stuff was still getting in there. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Looking for questions. What was this one? Cough Burp says, because Antarctica is where the edge of the Earth is, it's off limits to the masses to hide the flat Earth. Yeah, just ice, man. I really want to go to the South Pole or go to Antarctica someday. I've got a few friends that have gone on scientific expeditions, and one of them goes every year now. She actually leads expeditions for scientists down there. But my friend Eric, he's a professor at Stanford now, but when he was in grad school, he went on a trip and I think it was with NOAA, and they give, it's with this government trip, and they give everybody these like NOAA onesies that are really warm and poofy, and you walk around in those because they are guaranteed not to freeze to death while wearing them. And he said, to go to the bathroom, you literally have to like take this thing off in the freezing cold and take down the onesie and just pop a squat out there in the snowfield. He said that there was a guy in his group who not once, but twice, unzipped, got everything ready, did his out in the snowfield, and zipped it all back up and put his hood on, just dumped his own turds all over his head twice. Because he just took a shit in his hood. And that makes me smile, because I know that guy is probably some PhD working at Stanford or Harvard or Yale somewhere. And you dump turds in your head, bud. Twice. And that just brings me joy. All right. All right. Matt Thompson, thoughts about RC speaking out after bogus Gensler report and 90 days after him being chairman? I don't think the report has come out yet, has it? I haven't seen anything about the GME report. I can't speculate on that because I don't think that stuff has come out yet. So, Sir David P. asks, Houston, thoughts on Matrix 4 trailer? I am stoked. I have no idea exactly where the plot line is going to go in that, but what I do like is that they look like they use a lot of practical effects, and it's filmed on location in places, and it's not just green screen like the last two, where everything was just green screen, and you could tell it failed the uncanny valley test. It looked a little too fake at times, and I like the improvements. Okay. What we got here? Corselves talks about ancient Hawaiians would absolutely value the information telescope provide. They navigate by the stars. I'm sure they appreciate the greater understanding of the cosmos. I think everyone appreciates the greater understanding of the cosmos. The native Hawaiians were the best. Polynesians in general, the best stellar navigators in existence. Better than anyone else. Better than the Vikings. Better than anybody. They created the largest empire on Earth. Bigger than Genghis Khan. Bigger than Alexander the Great. If you look at this blue right here, this was controlled all by the Polynesians. They had actually more than that. They had basically this chunk. This was all Polynesians, all through here. They controlled everything. If they had access to metals, they would have just taken over everybody. They are really skilled sailors. They got to Polynesia. They got to South America, but South America was already populated by a bunch of people that had swords and metal and stuff, so they couldn't make any inroads there. So they stole a bunch of potatoes and pineapples and chickens and things, and then moved back in the Pacific again, where they were familiar with stuff. So, yeah. Okay. Ian Ryan, thank you. My second 3-week-old question was regarding a CERN and the chance of a black hole being created. That's what it was. To be able to create a black hole, you're going to have to be able to smack neutrons together. And the only thing that I know of that can smack neutrons together with that type of force is overwhelming gravity. And so my sister and I pondered on it, and we couldn't figure out how to accelerate neutrons at a fast enough speed to get them to combine into each other and form, the whatever black hole singularity required to create a fake black hole. Maybe there might be some sort of way to take charged particles that have a neutron's nucleus and smack them together. But once you're trying to overcome the weak nuclear and strong nuclear forces of these particles, it takes up a lot of that energy. So I don't think currently we have a way of making a fake black hole that way. I don't think we can quite do it because we can't accelerate those neutrons because they don't have any charge. So there's no way to get them in a magnetic field moving fast enough. Thank you. I knew it had something to do with that, and I couldn't remember the exact context of what it was. But yeah. All right. So I think that's it for me today. Friday day will be a show. So I'll see you guys Friday, 12:30ish to 1ish. And see you then. Otherwise, have a good night. I don't know. I might pop on Twitch later if I feel like playing a game, but it'll be real late at night. So, yeah. I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much. Go Big Houston and make you guys happy with a bye-bye.